Good morning, everyone. So in here, we got a surprise yesterday, which I'm excited to see. This guy. So let's talk about what's in this box. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Biking Roots, to Houston, and to the channel. And the bike we're talking about today is the Rift Zone XR. So we've already talked about the Rift Zone 1. We've also talked about and done a video on the Rift Zone 2. There is no Rift Zone 3 anymore for 2023, so that's why we're talking about the XR. So I need to get this built since we're short on time today, and so I'm not going to film building it. So let's just fast forward to now. Ta-da! All right, there it is, all built up. The new 2023 Marin Rift Zone XR. What do you guys think of the color? I think it looks pretty cool with the green and the black fade here in the seat tube, and then you have the green to black fade here. And then I really like the silver lettering here, which is cool. It says Rift Zone there. And then XR up there. And down here you have a Made for Fun with the bear, which, speaking of the bear, we have a new bear logo up here, which it didn't make it on the other Rift Zones. I don't know if that's going to come later in the year maybe, but anyway, yeah, different bear up front. All right, but enough about bears. What is the difference between this Rift Zone and the other models, you may be asking, or where does this Rift Zone fall? So first, let's just talk about the price, get it out of the way. This is $34.99, so that's a pretty big jump from the $23.99 of your Rift Zone 2. But there's quite a lot of differences that justify that extra $1,100. Well, at least I hope so. So we're going to talk about some of those component changes, which is why it commands the higher price tag. But first, let's talk about the frame, just as an overview. If you haven't seen the other videos, you can. I'll link them below on the Rift Zone. But you have a 65.5 degree head tube angle. You have a 77 degree seat tube angle. 430 millimeter chain stays. Your reach is pretty long now. You're at, this is a large, you're at 485 millimeter reach, which is pretty long of a reach for a large. Even the medium's a 460, which is, it's getting up there. So make sure you size accordingly. If you're a longer reach kind of guy, the Rift Zones are getting pretty long these days. All right, so let's start at the front of the bike with the suspension, with the fork. So instead of the Marzocchi Z2, which you get on the Rift Zone 2, you get the Marzocchi Bomber Z1. So what is the Z1? If you don't know already, this is a bigger diameter. This is 36 millimeter stanchion, opposed to the Z2, which is 34 millimeters. This is basically a Fox 36 rhythm. So the rhythm's what comes stock on a lot of bikes from the factory, kind of higher end bikes. The Marzocchi is basically the exact same fork, but with Marzocchi branding, and you get a little bit more, you get the M kind of brace here, but the damper's the same, the air spring's the same, which luckily is actually a very nice fork. I've used this on various bikes over the years, and yeah, it's very plush, very stiff. The grip damper is very smooth. Your knob is very smooth with the compression adjustment here from open to firm. So yeah, it just has a nice feel to it, and it works really well, and they're pretty reliable from my experience. And then down here, you have your rebound adjustment. You just unscrew that cap. And then there's your rebound, which gives you a decent amount of clicks and adjustment. No low speed or high speed rebound, just normal rebound, faster or slower. All right, so that's your big upgrade up front. And so why do you need this over maybe the Z2? Well, the XR is kind of designed to be in the Marin lineup. The XR is kind of your more rowdy, harder hitting. It's for those that want to smash things harder, go off bigger jumps, and you need something that's a little stiffer, a little burlier, if that makes sense. So this is, unless you just want a nicer build bike, you don't have to do all those things, but this bike is built to be a little bit more capable than the lesser grade Rift Zones. And once again, this is a trail bike. So this is 140 millimeters of travel in the front, and this is 130 in the back. If you need even more than that, then you want to move into your Alpine, more enduro friendly bikes, which are 160, 150. So this is still a trail bike, just a more aggressive trail bike. So the other upgrade in the back is to your shock. So instead of the RockShox Deluxe like you get on the Rift Zone 2, you get the Fox Float X, which is a nice capable shock with a piggyback reservoir, help with oil flow. You do have a climb switch, they call it, right here. Here's your climb switch. So that just firms it up if you're going uphill to firm it up, basically kind of lock out the suspension if you have a big climb. Here is your rebound control for faster or slower rebound, and then your air right there. But the Float X, it's not like the X2, which is burlier enduro shock, kind of a beefier trail shock. All right, so that's it for the suspension. As many of you know, suspension stuff isn't inexpensive, so when you go to these upgrades, it is quite a bit of a premium. Moving along with the bike, you do get a different crank set. You get a FSA grid, 170 millimeter cranks, 32 millimeter chainring. It's okay crank for this type of price point. And moving to the drivetrain, you get a Shimano XT 12-speed derailleur, which is an upgrade from the Dior on the 2. So regarding the cassette, a little bit of a surprise here, but they did use this on the Rift Zone 3 as well. So I don't know if it's a supply chain issue or just a cost-saving issue. They go with a Sunrace 11 51-tooth cassette, 12-speed cassette. And so instead of a Shimano cassette, which I would have liked to have seen with a Shimano chain, they go with KMC chain, XT derailleur, and a Sunrace cassette. So, and this is a HG driver, so the specs on the Marin website are wrong. This is not a microspline driver. This is a HG or Shimano driver. And that's kind of where like the wheel set, I don't know the weight of this wheel set, but it's just a Marin branded hub. If it's one thing that you want to upgrade on this bike, that's probably what a lot of people will do, is what Marin probably figured. So they just went with a generic Marin hub in the back. And then up front, you have a Shimano hub. Since we're talking about wheels, let's talk about the tires. These come with Maxxis Assegai. These EXO tubeless ready, 29 by 2.5 in the back, and also up front, same Assegai 29 by 2.5. These are very, very grippy. So depending where you live, that's a good thing. If you're in Houston area, not so great. These are very slow and sluggish on our clay soil. It's a nice tire. It's just not necessarily for everyone, but I get why they put it on this bike, because this is, the burlier, beefier Alpine, or I keep saying Alpine, Rift Zone. All right, we'll talk about the cockpit and then we'll get to the brakes. So you have 780 millimeter, a little bit of a rise bars, and a short stem. This is normal on the other Rift Zone line, so no upgrade or change there. You do have a Shimano branded dropper lever, which these are nice. They're not super fancy, but they actually work better than some of the other ones. And you have a Trans X dropper post. It says it's 170 millimeter drop, which I measure it's a little bit under, but it's close enough. And then you have a Marin branded saddle, generic grips. And for the shifter, you have an SLX. I will note, it does come with EV spec, so iSpec EV. So instead of having two separate clamps, you can integrate them, which some people like, to be able to clean up the cockpit a little bit. As for the brakes, the specs on the website say they're TRP slates. These are obviously not TRP slates, so not really like they're comparable. So these are the M4100s, so I put them in the same kind of performance ballpark as your TRP slates. All right, so 4100 4 piston in the back on 180 millimeter center lock rotors, and up front, 4 piston as well. These are 203 millimeters, so you get an upgrade from the Rift Zone 2 going to the XR. So bigger rotor, 4 piston instead of 2 for more aggressive riding and better stopping power. Okay, so there are some quick specs of the new Marin Rift Zone XR. What do you guys think about it? Should you get it? Would you guys get this Rift Zone over the other ones? Because you have the Rift Zone 1, the 2, the XR, the Carbon one, which is only a little bit more, but it's last gen and it has a Z2 instead of a Z1 on it. And then you have the Carbon 2, which has Fox, and then you have the Carbon 2 XR. So there's a lot of Rift Zones now, so you have a lot to choose from. This one sits kind of nicely in the middle to upper end of the Rift Zone family. I think it's a cool looking bike. I wish I could ride it. This one's for a customer, so unfortunately I can't ride it. So yeah, you do have to ask yourself, if you don't want all the travel of the Alpine, because the Alpine Trail is actually less expensive than this with similar components. So you do have to put that, do you want the 20 millimeters of the 160 in the Alpine versus the 140 of the Rift Zone? All right, guys, let me know if you have any questions on the XR or another Rift Zone, or how it compares to another bike in similar price point. If I can help, leave a comment below. If you liked the video, found it useful, hit the like button for us, subscribe to Biking Roots if you want to see more from us. And I hope you guys are doing well, and take care out there. We'll see you guys on the next video.